Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the We're Teachers podcast. This episode is We're Teachers. Of course, we need to prioritize wellness. Does that mean that we do, Sace?
No, emphasis on the need to.
The need to. That's in caps and bold.
For sure. 100%.
Because we're probably not spending enough time on ourselves, generally speaking.
No, definitely not. And that's kind of why we're talking about this, obviously, because we want to promote the health and wellness, because that's generally not something teachers are great at. And there are a few reasons for that, I will say. But my new district that I'm in actually has a wellness committee.
I love that.
I do too. And I didn't really know what all that meant. They talked about it whenever the entire staff met.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're seeing if anybody wanted to be on it, whatever, just kind of saying some of the things that they did. Well, I was going around and meeting with individual teachers, happened to run into that one's room. And I recognized her from speaking in front of everybody. And I was like, oh, you're the wellness girl. And she's like, yeah. And so she was telling me, some of the things that they do. And they sell t-shirts.
Cute.
At the beginning of the year. And then they have Wellness Wednesdays.
My high school did that with the teachers.
And so
what did they do at yours?
Well, if you wore your t-shirt, you got to wear jeans that day. So,
nice.
Anything about teachers, they like getting to wear jeans and not having to pay for it. I guess you did pay for it because you bought the t-shirt. But it's only an investment for the entire year.
Yeah.
Plus you got a shirt out of it. And then they use the money from the t-shirt sale to do things for people throughout the year. So, like, if there is a teacher who's struggling, they might get a gift card for them.
Oh, sweet.
They do events on teacher work days. So, some examples she gave me are having somebody come teach a self-defense class. And it's totally optional. If you have time in your day and you want to come to that, it's taken care of, whether they, just invite the person they came for free or they took care of paying for it. So come to that. On one of the days, the work days, they had a little walking challenge. And so you could meet in front of your campus, and they competed to see how many people from each campus. So if your campus had the most amount of participants that walked whatever the route was, then they won like some fruit trays.
Fun.
So I'm like, that's super healthy. And there was a few other things as well. And that's kind of the point of the committee, is coming up with ideas and things like that for new things to do in the next year. But I just love that. And I think that every district should try to implement that. Even if you don't have an actual committee,
just to do something like that.
Somebody make sure that there is something in place for teacher wellness, even if, the counselors, whatever. I just love that.
That's sweet. I had one of my friends from grad school, this sparked a memory, had a whole teacher work day that was what it was. It was a wellness day. I think I had told you about this when it happened.
I remember you telling me that, because they played pickleball or something, right?
Yeah, they had all kinds of activities, and you had to sign up for at least 3. Mm-hmm. But there were, I think she walked for a while. They went to the track and they walked around the track, and it was just whatever pace you wanted to be at. She played pickleball and she did yoga or something. And the rest of the day was in their classroom. So that was maybe 2 hours out of her day that she spent doing things.
Right.
And the rest of the day was in their classroom so that they could get organized and be ready for whatever the next semester was. But I just remember being like, that's so fun. And I still know that there'd be some people that would probably hate that, but maybe you could have a room where you're literally reading a book, and that's some of your wellness, is taking a second to read something that's not educational, and then maybe you do some yoga or you go for a walk. My high school that did Wellness Wednesdays, all the teachers that wanted to, obviously not all of them, but the ones that signed up for it worked out together after school. Literally went to the track and would do a workout. Oh, wow. And sometimes it was walking laps, and some people would run and some people would walk. And sometimes it was a fitness challenge of the month. So we're trying to get through 100 push-ups this month. So you need to do 25 each week,
right? Or
something like that. But they would all get together and try to hold each other accountable and work out after school on Wednesdays in a group, which was adorable.
Yeah, I love that. And I know some districts do it. It's probably by campus, because not everybody would want to participate, but kind of like The Biggest Loser. And so New Year's goal, resolution, whatever, most people want to lose weight, and so a lot of schools will do that. And
I have seen that.
You pay so much or whatever if you're going to be in it, and then they do monthly weigh-in or weekly, I guess, weigh-ins, and then whoever loses the most weight gets all that money or whatever.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's kind of fun.
That is cool.
Fun way to
do it. It should be valued more.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that that's something some people just don't want to talk about. But honestly, teachers get really stressed out, and I don't know. It's just, I feel like it's not talked about enough.
No, it's not. And I feel like sometimes it's more stressful to miss a day
Mm-hmm.
than it is to just be there.
Right.
Because if I'm missing a day, it's rare that I'm going to get a sub that can actually teach my content.
Right.
So then they're just doing like filler work for a day, and
Right.
then I'm a day off my schedule and I have to shift everything. And so if I can show up and like chug some Dayquil before I start my day and teach, then
Power
sometimes
through.
that's what I'll do. But that
Yeah.
doesn't make that the best option when I should be at home on the couch watching Gilmore Girls.
And it's not. And then, you're just prolonging the sickness because you're
Right.
not giving yourself the space to heal and get well. And I remember having that conversation the very first time I was ever going to be out and have a sub. And I wasn't sick. It was for a personal reason, but it's allowed.
Right.
And so, I'd put in the request plenty of time. They had a sub, and I was then prepping for the work I was going to leave for my kids. And I remember telling a coworker, I just, I just don't want it to be a busy day where they don't learn anything and they got nothing out of it. And she's like, that's exactly what it is, though.
Right. That's exactly what's going to happen.
And it's sad. And there are, sometimes where you get a sub who is a retired teacher.
Right.
But most of the time, it's not somebody who is certified at all.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're just doing it for whatever reason. But yeah, I think the downside of it is because a lot of time, if you have any other job, you can be gone and your work just stops.
Right.
But in education, those kids are still going to be there.
Which I have heard people talk about other types of vacations that you get in education. Like you go home for winter break or for spring break and for the summer.
Right.
And they were talking about how you can go on a vacation during those times and your work does just stop.
Yeah.
As opposed to like the corporate world, if you just leave for a random week in April, like people are still emailing you.
Yeah.
For that entire week. And so they said that they would get back to work and just be like drowning in work to do. And I've never had to think about that before, which it's harder for us to take a sick day and that kind of time off. But then if we are using the breaks that already exist in our schedule, that's probably easier than some other careers.
No, I didn't think about that. And I think that one point some people would like to argue is because we have all of this time off,
we should schedule our illnesses.
Schedule
I should plan the flu for
but also
March break.
Also, don't come to school and get my kids sick.
Yes.
That's an argument that I've heard.
Don't be here.
So that's super contradicting. But also, there is just such a negative view, even can be inside the school, if you do go do something fun and you take off of work for it. And it's like, hey, I still live a life.
Right.
And I'm allowed to do that. You have a set number of days. You get more every single year. There's no rule book that says you have to use these to be
especially
sick.
Here. So there's, in other areas, they are designated. So you get like 3 sick days that you have to, like, that you're only supposed to use them if you or your family is ill. And then like 4 personal days. And those are your fun ones that you can do whatever with. And so like sick days can be like doctor's appointments and dentist. And if you're sick, and then the personal days, like you can use them for being sick.
Right.
Or you can use them for other things. So it's like, I feel like we're lucky in that they're not categorized, because sometimes I am just, not everyone in my life is a teacher.
I think that when you go in some places it does say sick day, personal leave, whatever. But I don't know that they're really looking. I mean,
it comes out of
if you get sick, like real sick, I'm saying you cannot come to school for whatever reason because it's that bad, then they're going to take whatever day is there. Right. But in other countries, it's just like, oh, you're sick, cool, don't come to work. It's not.
Please don't get everyone
else sick. You get this many days of sick.
So weird, right?
Yeah, and I heard somebody from another country talking about that, and I was like, I had no idea that was. I just assumed
I've
it
never
was
really
the
had
standard.
To think about it. Yeah,
and they said that, and they're like, you don't know how many days you're going to be sick. How can your company tell you get this many sick days?
Well, and then if you've got a family, like who's taking care of my sick kid, I don't want to send my sick kid to work. But if I'm out of personal sick days for the school that I'm at, then I'm just sending my sick kid to school to be around the other kids to get them sick, so that it's just a mess.
Further along that line, the babysitter is sick. So nobody
Yes.
in your house is sick, but you can't send your child.
Right.
And some places are really cool about that. If you've got like a 3-year-old, whatever, they will let you bring your kid and they can sit, play under the desk, take a nap, whatever. But if you have a newborn or even a 1-year-old, I mean, like, you're not going to be able to
You can't
teach
do
the
it all.
same. You might can have them there. Some, bosses may be cool about that, but it just really
It's
kind of
not a
depends.
long-term
But
solution. And that's
and some of them would rather have you there than have to get a sub and just do the best you can.
especially if you're in a town like I'm working in, and even like you're working in, if the daycare goes down, it's like most of the
It's
school.
a lot of teacher kids. Yeah.
It's like all teacher kids. So you've got 10, 12 teachers that are out of work. So if their spouses can't take off to watch the kids, then like there's nobody to watch the children. So they all have to take off, and there's just not enough subs to go around.
Yeah, that's definitely a hard part of it, but
But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes people in my life that aren't teachers also just plan things that I want to be at for them.
Right.
And so then I'm taking personal days randomly because they aren't working on a school schedule,
Well,
and that's totally fair.
And you can't control everybody's life, but like you said, you want to be at those things, and I feel like I've gotten a lot better at that. My first year, I used every single day I had.
Really?
Every single day. In fact, I used more days. I had to pay the school to be gone because I had used so many days.
For what? Were you sick, or you just had things?
Oh, I actually was sick. I got the flu.
Oh.
And so I missed an entire week for that. And then from the flu, I got pneumonia. And so I missed part of the next week. And they still were like, please don't come back. We don't want to be sick.
Yeah,
but
well, yeah.
The doctor was like, you're okay. Like, you're not contagious anymore. I know you still feel bad, but you can go be at work.
You can go suffer.
And yeah, so I missed quite a few days being out for that. But the rest of it was like, I had a friend who was getting married. And so I had, been taking off for that because it was a ways away. It wasn't like I could just get there in a few hours.
Right.
And so it took me a while to get there. And some of those things were on Fridays. And so, I had to take the entire Friday off to be there and just random things like that. But yeah, I used every single day.
That's impressive. That's good work. I've never actually, I don't think, used all of the days. I came pretty close my first year. And then we had a year where we went to 7 weddings.
Wow.
And only 2 were in the summer. One was ours and one was our friends that were in the summer. And the rest of them were during the school year. So I would have to dip out on a Friday in the middle of the day or on a Thursday night and fly off. The kids gave me a hard time that year. They're like, where are you going this weekend? Because we've got friends all over the country. And so we had to fly to everything.
For sure.
And I used almost all of my days that year. I think I have since recovered them, but that was a busy season of life.
That's a lot. Well, and after that first year of using all those, I told myself, we're not doing this again. And so now I have several built up that's like more than an entire year's worth.
You have a cushion.
And so I've done really well with that because you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
And I don't want to have to pay the school.
No. For
all of those days. One is not that big of a deal, but if you miss multiple days and you don't have those, it's not going to be
expensive.
pretty. Yeah, it's a lot. I don't know. And so I've been better about that and trying to limit myself because also whenever women teachers have a child, if you have them during the school year,
I was just thinking of this.
You use those days for maternity, and that is one of my biggest pet peeves in education.
I'm ready to fight about it at it.
As we've already had this conversation, I've told so many people it's so frustrating because it's like in our line of work, we are with children. That
People
is our
kids.
purpose. It's for the kids. We say that all the time.
Why would I not want my own?
Everybody else, it's like, they pay you to be off, and we have to use all those sick days, all those personal days,
and then pay the school.
Plus, I'm paying you to pay my sub to be there, and it's insane. Even if some people get like short-term disability to help with that.
Okay, but
it's not great though.
You also have to know that you want to be expecting during the open season for your insurance. So when that opens up in August for us at the beginning of every school year, if you're using school insurance, you have to know, hey, sometime in the next year, I might want to try to have a child.
Yeah.
So that you can pay extra on your insurance for the short-term disability.
Yeah.
In the case that you end up with a child and could benefit from it, which is just like so twisted to me.
It is. It's honestly like that part of it's pretty messed up, and that has nothing to do with any school district because that's totally not their fault.
Yeah, no, it's a universal problem. Like,
But it's just it's like
across the country, it's an issue.
Why? If I had any other job, they would pay you for at least 6 weeks.
Most of them are at 12 now, I feel like.
And some places even have paternity leave.
Yeah, my husband gets that. My husband gets paid paternity leave and I don't get paid maternity leave, which I think is the biggest joke of it all, is that like he could stay home and be paid to be with our baby for like 3 months.
And
I'm gonna have to pay to do that. Yeah. Which, not that that's anything that's being considered right now anyway. I don't want anyone who's listening to this that knows us to be getting ideas about either of us.
What are you trying to tell me?
But it just falls right in with the PTO because like you do have to plan ahead if you want to try to save some money because you have to not go anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's like, you have to use them for all the doctor's appointments. I remember one of my coworkers doing that. She's probably listening to this. And she used them all for doctor's appointments before she even went on maternity leave.
Well, and a lot of places have what we call a sick bank. And so they take a day from the new teachers in the district to add to said sick bank. And then there's a committee that you can apply to get a day from whatever that'll decide if they want to grant you a day from the sick bank of days. And sometimes they do, but
sometimes they don't.
In place. And a lot of schools, you can only get one of those days for maternity. Yeah. Like if you broke your back, I don't know, and you're in the hospital for a while, probably gonna need some days, right?
Right.
So you can apply. They might give you a handful of days, but if you're carrying a child, you can only get one day. And like you said, you're probably gonna use that at an appointment,
right? Because the doctors close at 4:30, and school goes until around 4, around like near us at least. And so there's just not enough time.
No.
You've got to have blood work done. There's all kinds of things that just like
it's a mess.
Eat up that time before you have a chance to even use it.
Yeah.
And again, it just baffles me that it's a woman-dominated field where they clearly enjoy being around children.
For sure.
And someone goes, surely they don't want their own. That'd be crazy. I also have heard from other teachers, like, parents being upset with them that they're going to be out for maternity leave. Like parents straight up coming to them and being like, I can't believe you're going to be gone starting in March.
Why did you not plan to have your baby over the summer?
Why didn't you plan to have your baby in June like every other teacher in the world? What are you doing? You're just going to leave our kids here?
Which is like, funny that you say that because some teachers do plan it like that.
I mean, yeah, because then you don't have to pay to be off.
Then you just have the summer.
It just baffles me that you have the audacity to walk up to someone and say that. Someone that takes care of your child for at least 8 hours a day, and you walk up to them and you're like, I can't believe you're going to be gone and take care of your own child for 6 weeks. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to miss the state testing season. It's like,
honestly, the audacity. Yeah. It's like, there are other qualified people. It's not just me. But
someone else will teach.
I love your faith in me. It's going to be okay.
Which that does make me think of like the fact that if you are going to be out, technology is at least a help now. If you're in
100%
a technologically ahead district, like I can leave a video for my kids. They can still take notes. It's not the end of the world.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I have personally firsthand witnessed you sitting at a conference of thousands of adults and you going and finding a quiet spot.
Sitting on the floor.
You could sit in the floor with your laptop and create a video explaining something that one of your students was not understanding while you were just away for a couple of days. You know?
And that was only a few days.
And I thought that was really cool of you. Honestly, adorable. But yeah, like that is huge. And then you can kind of do that, pop in, look in Google Classroom or, whatever the LMS is. And you can kind of keep track of some things like that. But also, if you are that teacher on maternity, you're still expected
to pop in and grade things.
To be grading things. And the sub is not doing that for you. And
Which I will say that depends on the area too, because I did sub for someone's maternity leave. And she shared her curriculum with me, which it was a math class and I'm qualified to teach math. So I'm sure that made a huge difference. But she shared her curriculum with me and they got me logins at the school and I did all of that. So like I picked what I was teaching each day. I graded all the homework, I assigned it, and I put all the grades in the grade book.
Yeah.
So like that can be handed off, but I feel like it's regional whether or not that happens.
Yeah.
And who's available.
Yeah. And who you trust to do that as the teacher. But you're also, you're leaving all the lesson plans and all of that good stuff. It's not just thrown on somebody,
Well,
but it's a
and
lot of prep work.
even if you want to do videos for the kids, 6 weeks worth of videos is a lot of videos.
It's a lot of days.
That's 30 days worth of videos, and that's not all they're going to do, but it's just
Right.
that takes a long time to
And
record.
that's for one class.
Yeah. So if you teach more than one class, like the teacher that I was thinking of earlier teaches like 4 or 5 different preps.
Ooh,
so that's a lot of materials
That
to
is
get
a lot.
together for her
Mhm.
to just be out for a few weeks. But
So those are definitely some of the negative aspects of PTO in the teaching world. But I do think that it can be utilized pretty well. And I feel like you're a pretty good person to speak to that because I know Molly loves a good 3-day weekend.
I love a trip.
She also will use some PTO to go do something because she's living her best life. So
I'm trying to.
can you speak to that?
Yes. So I'm not originally from around here, so I'm trying to see all the things I can see,
Mhm.
And so that means that sometimes what Stacey is referencing is that we'll have like a 3-day weekend, and my husband and I will literally drive or fly to Colorado and ski for 2 days and then travel home and just be exhausted rolling up to work on Tuesday. It's usually a Monday we have off.
Right.
But that's worth it to us.
Mhm.
And what I was talking about before with all the weddings, it's like traveling when you can to see the people that you can. I always say that I've never regretted showing up for someone.
Mhm.
I've never spent that money and used that PTO and then regretted being at that event.
Right.
I've missed big events and regretted not being there.
For sure.
When I was too scared to spend the money or too scared to use the PTO because I didn't want to miss a day. But I've always would rather show up for someone. So it's, I don't know, just being willing to put yourself first sometimes. The kids don't need you that bad. I hate to be that guy, but they don't.
They're going to be okay for a couple of days. If you take off 1 or even 2 days of your PTO in a row, they are going to be okay. Just like they would be okay if you all of a sudden got sick and had to be gone. It's really not that different. It just, people try to guilt teachers because really you went to go skiing and it's the middle of the school year.
Like, you're just going to leave your kids here like this?
Thank you. I was not gone for an entire week. I was not at, whatever.
I missed one class. I missed one day.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is, people feel guilty leaving, and the kids don't love having a sub, and I get that. It's my own sub. But that's also part of just them learning how to work with people they don't always like. That's an aspect of life too.
And that's what I would tell them too. There's constantly going to be people when you're in whatever work you go into, you're just going to have to learn to get along with. And I'm sorry that you don't like that sub. They're not your favorite.
Tough.
I'm the one that left what to do. Maybe they got off of what they were supposed to do. That happens because they're like, I don't know how to do that, or I don't want to do that. It's all right. We're just gonna go about this a different way, and that is frustrating to come back and it's like,
or if they've just,
if I had been here, yes.
I've had subs before where they were supposed to be giving a test and they talked to the kids the entire time, so
or they helped them,
or they let them cheat and watched it happen.
100%.
So that is tough, and that's like, if you're going to take like willy-nilly PTO to go on a little trip for yourself, I fully support that, obviously, but you do have to plan that out. Like, you have to set the kids up for success, and you've got to set the sub up for success. So my lesson plans are literally like, here's where you plug in the lights, here's where you find the remote, and try to set them up to be successful in that space. And then
I also have moved things before. So like, I have always been a big planner and will plan weeks out in advance just in case something were to happen and I got sick or whatever. I already know what's happening. But the good thing about that is if I then know, I'm going to go to a workshop this day, I can just move it with something else. It's right around.
Right. Just like flip-flop something.
Week, instead of doing that on Tuesday, we're going to do this on Wednesday because you kind of need me for this. It's going to make a lot more sense. And you can figure this out with a video. So kind of planning accordingly, I guess.
And that's like, I'm going to be out a couple of days next week, and one of my classes is supposed to be doing a quiz review and a quiz. And so that's something that I can kind of leave them with, because in theory they should be working on the quiz review with each other anyway, not with me. But if not, like, I've already got the video recorded, like you were talking about, that talks them through it, that they can go to. So if you're choosing not to take part in that, then that's on you. That's no 100%. Longer a me problem, especially the age that I teach. But yeah, leaving things that are functional for a sub
And a
It's
backup
important.
because sometimes the Wi-Fi goes down. So I always leave something paper
Mm-hmm.
just in case. And I put only use this if the internet's down.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's happened before. And it just all of a
It
sudden
has.
is out for whatever reason you don't know. Could be a couple class periods. It could be the entire day. But
Mhm.
they don't need to sit there doing nothing.
And I always leave extra work. I told a new teacher this just last week. I was like, if you're going to be out, I need you to leave 3 days worth of work for those children, because if they waste their time on the first one and they blow through it and they don't care about it, you need the sub
It's
to be
like,
able to hand them something else.
oh, you think you're done? That's cute.
And then after
Kudos
that
to them.
second item is done, there needs to be something else in case they finish that. Like, especially if you're not so good at
Mhm.
pacing yet, that's how you fix that, is you just leave way more work than you can expect, and then you grade whatever is reasonable when you get back.
Mhm.
And you keep the rest of it for the next time you have a sub. And you put that in your extras.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would do too. So I think that's great advice for people who are planning to do that for the first time. But also, and we've talked about this before, that how we would have kids who would, kind of be upset with us that we had been
Yes.
gone. So for reference, I missed a Friday and a Monday this past school year.
So a 4-day weekend.
So I had a 4-day weekend.
Probably
But
not because you really wanted one.
No, I definitely wanted one.
It was
This
just
was a
for
fun
trip.
one. No, this was a fun one.
Okay, then you deserve that. But
it wasn't something that I had necessarily planned. So
it just kind of popped up.
I got surprised with tickets for Christmas,
That's right.
and it was for something in January.
Right.
And so then I really, because it was like we were going to have to fly there. And so it just ended up being a whole thing. And I really needed those days. And I took off Monday because we were coming in Sunday night, but it was going to be super late. And I just knew I was going to be a zombie the next day.
Right.
So that was kind of a mental health for my wellness to kind of get
Right.
back in the time zone and rest a little bit before I had to be a human at work again. So then I come back to
Especially with those
work.
middle schoolers.
Yeah. But then I get back to work and it's like, where were you? Were you sick? No? You were just gone? Yeah.
So, do you warn them first, or do you just peace out? Or does it depend?
It really depends on the
Okay.
class, on why I'm going to be gone, because the thing with a small town too is like kids know where you live and they figure that out. So I never wanted to really advertise, hey, I'm about to be gone for a 4-day
That's
weekend.
really fair.
Not
Yeah.
that like anything's gonna happen.
No one's going to do anything, but you don't want to think about it.
But yeah, you just hear all the crazy stories. And so I personally would never advertise. I would tell my coworkers
Right.
so that they knew, like, I'm not in the hospital. I'm perfectly fine.
Right.
But I'm not going to be here for a couple of days, or I'm going to be at a workshop. I'll be out in the morning, whatever. I'll be back. But I usually wouldn't tell those kids. Now, the little ones, when I taught first grade, more likely to tell them because they don't know where I live.
And they need a warning.
It's a little bit more emotional for them if it's
Right.
like panic with the teacher's not there for a
Right.
couple of days. They're like, oh, she literally died.
That's the only option.
So I would kind of give them a heads up. But yeah, it was like I had gone and done something fun and they were kind of mad at me because whatever with the sub, but also you can't just go do that in the middle of the school year. And it's like, hey, I hate to let you know this, but
I can.
I'm actually allowed. They give me days that I can take off
To do
I
this.
used to them. I had a great time.
I'm so glad to be back. I'm
And now I'm here.
refreshed.
Yeah.
It was a
needed that.
blast.
So just be happy for me. It's a teachable moment. We love this.
I usually tell them that if they graduate high school and then they go get a degree and then they get a job like mine, they too can go on a trip like I just went on.
Right. 100%.
If that's what they decide they want to do.
Yeah.
I always warn mine, but they're high schoolers. I also don't live in town,
yeah,
so
you
that's
don't
a
live
help.
close to school.
And the math is scary enough that sometimes they like freak out if I'm not there. So I'm like, please take a deep breath. You know what you're doing. Please
Right.
complete the worksheet, and I will see you when I get back.
Mhm.
But I did forget once last year, and I don't remember where I was, but I had gone out of town and I had told most of my kids, but I forgot my pre-cal class. And they're the ones, it's always a smaller group, and they're advanced and they just want to please and they're so sweet. And so they were genuinely concerned.
Right.
Because I just randomly didn't show up to school and I never don't warn them about things.
For sure.
And so they were like asking the teachers in the rooms around me that, oh my God, where is she today? Is she okay? Is she sick?
Yeah.
Do we need to be worried about her? Have you talked to her? And the one who was next door to me last year, like texted me and was like, hey, the kids are looking for you. And I think I literally posted Google Classroom, was like, guys, I'm fine. Do your work. Stop.
Oh, that's
And they're self-sufficient. Like the way
yeah,
that class is structured, they
right.
do the thing, it's flipped. So they do all
Mhm,
their work themselves. I didn't even, when I leave subplans, I'm like, they know what to do. They're fine. Like, let them be.
for
And
sure.
so it wasn't something that I thought about. I didn't have to warn them to do anything. They just
They were ready.
produce.
On that note, I have also been out for a couple days in a row and had kids emailing me, asking me
Yes.
where I was, when are you going to be back? We need you, we miss you, I love you. And it's funny because it would always be from kids who weren't super affectionate with me and
Right.
didn't really like show me that side all year.
Right. But they're
And then
relying on you.
you're gone for a couple days because you had to go to a training or something, and
Mhm.
all of a sudden you're their favorite teacher. And it's like, you do care.
You do like
I
me.
needed to be gone so that we could have this moment.
Yep.
So you're welcome.
That's why we did this. I
Yeah.
did get an email once. I think it was when we were at the conference a couple of years ago, and it was one of my students, and the subject was like crying. And the body of the email was like, I'm literally crying over this IXL right now. And I like answered her at the conference because I saw it and
Yeah.
laughed at it, told you, and then answered her and was like, it's really not that big of a deal. Just leave it until I get back. She's like, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I miss you. And I'm like, thanks, honey.
Yeah, I love
I'll
that.
see you in a
And
few
I
days.
even like heard from a coworker, they would text me that my kids were really struggling with something, and it was like I was at something where I had my computer, I was on it. So I hopped on the little platform that we use to monitor what the kids are doing with their online activity, and you can send them messages through that. And so I was like, "Hey, if you're trying to do this, you need to da 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 da," so I could send it just to that kid, or you can send it to the entire class. So a couple of times I've done that too, like, "Hey, this is your announcement. Make sure you turn this in before you leave," whatever. And so one kid responded to it, "Where are you?"
That always cracks
Like,
me up because I will also log on to that monitoring platform, especially if we're at the conference. I'll like, if I left something for them to do online, I'll
yeah,
log on and then I'll like close tabs. I'm
yeah,
like, oh, you're playing games and you should be doing the math program. I'm gonna
that's
close out of
funny.
that real quick. And they're like, how did you do that? And it's like, it's a technology workshop, guys.
Magic.
I'm
I
literally
know how
on
to
my
use
computer
this.
all day.
Yeah,
Like, why would I not check
yeah.
in on you?
I just keep that tab open so that I can go back and check periodically to
Every
see if
once in
you're
a
doing what you're
while,
supposed to do.
peep in and see what's going on.
I love that. But yeah, that's hilarious. So, kind of circling back to some other things, do you feel like schools help teachers plan that PTO? I mean, do you think that that's something that like districts encourage, or do you like? So we've been talking about that culture and like we feel the guilt and things like that, but I don't necessarily think that like that's not something that the school is putting on us. I
Yeah.
think that it's definitely an internal. It's the kids. You feel
It's
bad for
the
leaving
people
them.
pleaser in me
Yes.
trying to make her way back out into the world.
Mhm.
I don't feel like, at least in the district I'm in right now, I don't feel any pressure from admin that I shouldn't do that, which is why I still am every once in a while just taking a random day and going
Yeah.
on a 3-day weekend.
As you should.
Or I'm leaving town to go to someone else's important event.
Right.
And I feel like they're really good about that. There are times of year where everyone's out. Like in the spring, it gets super busy, and all of our
Right.
coaches are out coaching things because a lot of events in Texas, or at least this area of Texas, happen in the middle of the school day.
They do.
I'm not used to that.
Well, and then
Still.
you have parents who are teachers and want to be at that thing for their
Right.
child, and
And
so then
so
they need to go, and then you're covering like all these classes or putting like classes together in the cafeteria, whatever, and so that does get kind of hectic.
and that will be a time where sometimes we'll have someone in the district be like, listen, I might be a little more picky about it. Like, just come let me know if it's not a non-negotiable, but like, I really need everyone here on Tuesday because all of the coaches and half the parents are out. So like, if you guys could make that work, that would be awesome. And
Yeah.
it's never like a hard and fast rule. It depends on what
For
you're
sure.
asking for, but there are certain parts of the year where it just kind of ramps up and you know that that's not a good time to do it.
Yeah.
And that's using it smart, like in a smart way. You need to use your PTO wisely.
Right. Have you ever worked somewhere where they flat out told you you cannot request off from here to here?
No. I did work somewhere where they suggested that you didn't get COVID tested because then they had to have you out for 10 days. And so if you went and did that, they'd get really mad, which felt real icky to me
Yeah.
because, like, obviously I'm sick. if I'm taking the time to go have a Q-tip shoved all the way up my nose.
Yeah. You don't do that for
brain.
fun?
Not usually. And I remember that just being like, no one even asked, or not no one. The people I was calling to take the time off when I did get sick, and I was sick, didn't even ask if I was okay or if I needed anything. They just were like mad that they needed 10 days of sub plans. And I remember being like, I think I need to go. Like, I don't think I can work here anymore. Because I had coworkers check on me and make sure I was good and that I could do like grocery pickup. But it's like, I was really sick yesterday and I was even more sick this morning. That's why I went to a doctor finally. And like, no one's like, my boss doesn't care. Which
Yeah, we're not looking at
my
that.
boss now, I've gotten a shot before and I was like, I feel funny. She was like, you look funny, go home.
Yeah,
Like, do you need to sit here or can you drive? And I was like, I think I'll make it. I just don't think I should teach. And she's like, that makes sense. Get out of here. And covered my classes for the rest of the day. And so it's totally different dynamics. But I've never had anyone say like a certain time of year you can't. Have you had that happen to you?
I've been told that before. An email went out that we literally could not request off from said day to said day. And again, my mom's in education. So usually if there's something that just like strikes me, I'm like, mom. Or now probably you too. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I just like, you can't tell me that I can't. Because if I it's tough because I feel like when you're new, and this isn't any job because I had a job that wasn't in education and I felt the exact same way then. So it's everywhere. But when you're new, it just feels like, you know, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be taking off for whatever reason. You need to be there. It's like, oh, hey, do you mind if I'm not here on this day because my friend is getting married and it's out of town? No, I wish I could go back and tell the younger version of myself, when you need a day off, you were telling your work,
I'm not going to
be here this day. That's why I filled that out. You need to find other plans for that day because I'm going to be absent. And that's just my view on it now. It's like, okay, well, I have the days and this is one that I'm using. This is when I'll be out. Mm-hmm. And it would be different if you let them know the day before that you had to be out of training. But sometimes that happens if you're sick. I mean, obviously you didn't plan on being sick. And so, but if it's something like that and it's a fun thing or something you don't necessarily have to be at, I do think that should be planned out in advance so that
I try to give a ton of notice with that.
Yeah, they have time because sometimes there's a sub shortage and they might not be able to find somebody the last minute. And so that's kind of different, but that's just how I view it now. It's like, hey, I'm letting you know I'm not going to be here that day. Figure something out, whether it's a sub, we put an 8 in here.
Whatever it is.
Because I know I've offered to combine classes or we've split classes for other teachers.
And we cover for each other all the time.
That teacher needs to be on. And that's like the culture of education too, is like we're there for each other. Mm-hmm. And so, or most districts, I shouldn't speak for everybody, I guess. But a lot of districts I've been, it's like your coworker wants you to be able to go and do that fun thing. Or if you need to go to a funeral or you need to go to the doctor, like I have had coworkers be like, why did you come in today? You look terrible. You can't feel good. Yep. Please leave. Mm-hmm. We will split your kids. It'll just be a few more for all of us.
We won't really notice the difference.
It's fine. You know, you're already halfway through the day. Like, go home and rest. Mm-hmm. And I love that part of it, that it's like that. And you're a team and you're there for each other. And there's also been, you know, where there was like a death of somebody who you work with and like or a death of somebody in the school.
Right.
And a lot of people want to go to that. And so same thing. It's like, hey, if you really want to go to this funeral, let us know. We will make it happen. We will somehow get your class covered for you to be able to go to that. And so I think that that's really cool.
Happening in like the ones of us who hadn't been here as long. You're like, I can be there and I can be at the school with all the kids that I need to be at the school with because that's what we're doing to make that work.
Sure. Yeah. And that's a really cool part of it. So.
But there's good and bad. Sometimes it's, I feel like, and I don't want this to come across the wrong way, so hopefully it doesn't, but I sometimes feel like when it's newer workers in general, not even just teachers, like you said, any workplace, I feel like there's almost an ability to like bully them into believing that they have to be there all the time. And 100%. I don't think that anyone that's a boss or an advisor or any kind of being in charge of people. I don't think that they're setting out to ruin someone's day,
Mhm.
but it's like, if you tell the new teacher that they shouldn't do that they're not going to do that.
Right. Because there's people pleasers like
Yeah,
us who are
because
gonna
that's
like,
how
"Oh,
they
no,
got
no."
here, is because they're
Yeah,
trying to make people happy all the time.
for sure.
So I feel like that's something that sometimes gets taken advantage of,
Mhm.
whether or not it's conscious.
Yeah. Well,
But
and
that's why the days are there. If they weren't
and
supposed
it
to be gone, they
is
wouldn't give them to us at all.
right. And part of it, especially with being a new teacher, like, I hear people tell new teachers this all the time, "You're gonna get sick."
You're
Your
so
your
sick.
body is not used to being around that many germs all day.
I'm
You're gonna
talking
be
to
sick so many times.
the newer ones at our school. I'm like, get your vitamin C. Start drinking
Yes.
an emergency every single day and just chug that.
Literally.
And it's not tasty and it's gross, but like
Yeah,
it's worth it to not be sick by September.
for sure.
I have heard of places where you basically pay your sub.
Mm,
So they give you a certain number of days. Say we get 10 days a year, which is an exaggeration because it's not that many, I don't think. Um, but that's like $100 days that
mhm.
you can use to pay a sub.
Yeah.
So you reach out to a sub and you contact them and you're like, I'm going to be out on the 5th.
Mhm.
And you use one of those slots and then you get that money at the end of the year. So whatever's left,
Yeah.
you get paid for
Yeah.
and it resets the next year. So it's not necessarily that you build them up. It's just that you get the leftover money because
Mhm.
the district didn't have to pay a sub.
Right.
Because when they pay a sub, they're still paying me.
For sure. But they're
So
also
they're
paying
paying
that person.
double.
Which is why if you run out of days, it's like, we don't have any more to pay you, so now you have to pay that sub. But also, whenever people have worked for so long and they didn't use those days, that's why there are some teachers who literally retire and it's January or December because they had that many days.
Right.
So they just kind of like paid them out.
Well, they take every Friday all year, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's a dream.
But also, like, they won't let you give those days because I've had
Which
somebody
is so
who
silly.
tried to give a day, and it's like it costs you the same, pal, but they just don't allow that.
Mhm.
And I didn't actually work in this district, but I had an offer from there and almost worked there. And part of their incentive, because we're always trying to incentivize teachers to come work in whatever the district is.
Because we don't pay them enough. to
Yeah,
begin with,
yeah.
so we have to
There's gotta
add
be
like
there has to
extras.
be something. We gotta give them free housing, or there has to be, I don't know, something, daycare. And part of what they did is at the end of the year, like, even if you were leaving the district, they would pay you back for whatever days you didn't use. So
That's
you weren't
interesting.
paying the sub. It worked the same. Like, they pay you and they're paying the sub for the day that you're gone. But if there was any amount of days that you did not use your PTO at the end of the school year, they would pay you out.
That's cool.
So
I could get behind that. My mom built up her days, which she wasn't a teacher. She just worked for the state.
mhm.
But she could build up her days and it lowered her health insurance costs because their
Mm.
theory was that if you're not sick all the time when you're working, which she had separate sick days and personal days. So she'd have to get like a doctor's note or
Okay.
something if she was going to be out for a sick day.
Mhm.
But if she kept enough of those, like it lowered her health insurance during retirement. So now her
That's
health
cool.
insurance is cheaper now that she's retired because she didn't use all of her sick days.
All of them.
She'd use like her personal days sometimes instead just to
Yeah.
try to balance that. But
I
there's
like
different
that.
ways to incentivize it that
For sure.
I could get into.
Well, we're fixing to wrap up here, but my last question for you is, I guess, what advice would you give to teachers new and old who maybe are more reluctant to use that time off because they feel guilty?
I feel like it's money you're losing
Mhm.
because you don't get it back, at least where we work.
Yeah.
Like you don't get that money at the end of the year. So if you have to think about it that way so that you use it, go for it because it's money that you're wasting by not using the PTO. And yes, you need to save some, kind of like an emergency fund in your bank account. You have that there that you don't touch because if something goes awry, you need it.
Mhm.
Like you need to save some in case you get the flu, but you don't
Yeah.
need to save them all.
For
And
sure.
honestly, like I've talked about this with other people in our district before. Like if you had a doctor's appointment at 9, so you had to take a half day, use it.
Mhm.
Some people come back early. You don't get those hours back. Go
Mhm.
take yourself out to lunch and then come back after lunch. Do something for yourself in that time.
You even, like, came home and read your book before, right?
I did. I came home and I like finished the book that I had been reading
Mhm.
and then I got in the car and went to work because my appointment was faster than I expected. So
Yeah.
now I had taken a whole half day for it.
And I've even done that too, where I took an entire day and didn't realize it was something that was only going to be
A half
part
day.
of the day.
Mhm.
And so I was like, well, they already have me covered. and
Right.
you're
They've
using
paid the
what I say.
sub.
And so it's like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to be productive. And, especially if I had gone out of town for it, it's like, oh, well, all right. I mean, I already took the day off. So, just make the most of that. But
Just don't be afraid to use it. That's why it's there.
yeah,
Other
and
people in other jobs take vacation.
they do. And that's what, finally like resonated with me is hearing veteran teachers saying, use the days.
Right.
If you need to do something, take the day. Don't feel guilty for it. It's fine. Like, nobody here is questioning it,
No one here is mad at you.
No, it's allowed. It's okay. Go be there for your family, for your kid, for your friends, whoever needs
Even when
you.
I was out on a Friday so that I could go skiing, no, I don't think anyone was mad at me. Everyone seemed excited. So.
Yeah. No.
It can be something super necessary or just something you want to get done.
For sure.
But
well,
we've yapped for a while.
We're at the end of this, but plan a day off.
Yeah.
Go pick one. Find something.
Stop listening to us and go pick a day to take off.
Yeah. Go ahead and request it or tell them, hey, kindly, I'm not going to be there this day. Don't come in super aggressively. That may not go well depending on who your supervisor is. But go ahead and pick a day and plan something fun or use it as just mental health to be home and read your book or catch up on TV or be with your kids or your dog or whatever it is. But
yeah,
do it.
Go take some action.
Yeah. So hope that works out well for you. I'm going to go do that tomorrow as well.
I already requested mine last week.
I put in one yesterday.
Like literally as soon as the portal was accessible, I was like, I already know that I need these days.
Okay,
Thank
literally
you so much.
Me too, because since I'm new, they had to like go and put in the days from years past that I haven't used yet.
Oh.
And so I was putting in days and it was like exceeded allotment.
Like, oh no.
But they didn't have any, and it said that I had 0 days. It's not that I already took off that many days.
Oh my gosh.
Like, dang, she's really taking her own advice. No, I was trying to put that, like, there's a Friday, I need to be gone. And so I was trying to put that in, and it popped up, alert, exceeded allotment. I'm like, they must not have everything synced yet. Which, again, it's beginning of the school year. So
right, they're trying to straighten it out.
I tried it the next week, and it worked. So everything is good. But, yeah, hope that works out well for everybody. I'm looking forward to seeing what Molly does on her days off this year. So stay tuned for some of that. But thanks for listening, and we'll catch up soon.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.